Good evening and welcome. I'm Pastor Tim Westermeyer, and on behalf of St. Philip the Deacon Lutheran Church in Plymouth, it's my privilege and pleasure to welcome you tonight to the last installment of the 2019-2020 Faith and Life Lecture Series. I'm coming to you from the sanctuary of St. Philip the Deacon, which is where we hold these events. We're now in the 17th year, as I mentioned. Our speaker tonight is joining us remotely, and of course, we're coming to you virtually. If we were together live, I would actually, at this point, say a strong welcome, especially to folks who have never been to one of our events tonight. I hope there are many new faces who are tuning in to listen to this presentation tonight. And again, I want to say a strong welcome to each and every one of you. We are glad you are with us. The Faith and Life series, again, for 17 years now, has invited well-known, nationally, internationally recognized authors and speakers and business and nonprofit leaders, doctors and lawyers. We have had some sports individuals join us, not a lot, but a handful over the years. And tonight, we are delighted to be welcoming a local boy who has done very well for himself. He actually grew up in the backyard of where I'm broadcasting from tonight. In Medina, his family was connected and is, in fact, still connected to this congregation. He went to Wayzata High School and went on to the University of Minnesota and then joined the NBA as an assistant coach, first with the Washington Wizards and then, of course, with our own Minnesota Timberwolves. And about a year ago, he was named the head coach of the Timberwolves, becoming, through that appointment, the youngest head coach in the NBA. We are delighted to have him with us tonight. I'm going to turn it over to him in a second. He's going to share a few thoughts for 10 or 15 minutes. After he's done, I'm going to come back and we're going to have some opportunities for questions with him. We have the capability, I believe, through our streaming system for you to send us questions. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can. So please send your questions in and we'll be getting to those after his presentation. Again, welcome to each and every one of you. And now I am delighted to turn it over to Coach Ryan Saunders.
Thanks, Pastor Westmeyer. First off, I'll say, it's an honor to be here, in front of all of you. And this isn't a platform that I take lightly. I've been given an opportunity to share a little bit about my faith journey and what a relationship with Christ has done for me and in my life. I'll start tonight off the same way I did a webinar last week for the NABC, a bunch of youth, high school, college, some professional international coaches, ended up being close to 15,000 coaches tuning in we're all finding a new normal, doing things off Zoom, off webinars and just trying to, continue on with our lives virtually. But I said to start that webinar that I don't have all the answers when it comes to coaching, but I do my best, and I have a way of doing things that I feel is one that has worked for me, one that I believe in, and I'll tell you all the same thing, but a little different message tonight. I want to make it a point, that I'm far from the perfect Christian. I have plenty of flaws. As we all do. But I come here tonight humbly and, with a knowing that the Bible is true. And, that's a main message for me that, church has always been part of my family's life and my life. But as time went on and, I just turned 34 a couple weeks ago here. As time went on, my relationship with Christ grew. And, as we all know, any relationship takes effort, takes commitment, and it goes through its ups and downs, and that's a message that I want to share with whoever's listening tonight, fellow Christians, but also individuals that might be seeking a path, and a path that maybe they haven't gone down often. So, however you got here tonight on this live stream, we're all obviously all glad you're here because you never know what something can do for you in a moment of, however you might have got here. So, Proverbs 3:5 is a verse I've constantly had to remind myself of. And, trust in the Lord with all your heart. and lean on your own understanding. And, I think I speak for, a lot of Christians, but, just people in general, is that's tough at times, because you get on with your daily, your earthly lives. And, it's tough to come back to that. But, as I said earlier, relationships can see ups and downs. It took me a while, but I learned that faith does not have to be linear, and that you can give yourself grace, and because God wants you to give yourself grace. And over time, I'm still working on that, but over time, I've been able to do more of that. Give myself grace. I'll say, it's pretty well known. I mean, especially for members of St. Philip the Deacon, who have had the chance to know my dad, but I got to experience the highs and lows of faith during the summer of 2015. And, that was a summer where my life changed. And as my father entered a state where he was fighting for his life, one that ultimately ended in October of that year. 4 years later, I can look back and reflect and say, and see how my faith had to go through a time of questioning, a questioning of why. Why would something like this happen? I remember, and I'm not ashamed to say it right now. I remember there were times where I would ask, out loud, where are you, God? But that really strengthened me, and that strengthened my relationship with Christ. During that time, we were a family that we didn't lose faith. We might have had those moments of I guess, weakness or vulnerability. But all the way up until his last breath, we didn't lose faith that something great could happen, a miracle could happen. And I'll talk about it, but I think about after he passed away, there's been a lot of miracles in my life. With the help of community and friends, we grieved in a way, that was public at times, difficult, obviously watching, powerful, but difficult, watching in front of 20,000 people, 10 minutes of your videos of your dad, a week after he passed away, while you're standing, out on the court before the national anthem when I was an assistant with the Timberwolves. That was hard, because I was used to him being right next to me during that time. And a lot of people don't know that. But, we grieved, but our faith became stronger through that. When going through tough times, like now, obviously everybody's going through something right now. Could be questioning, could be financially. Everybody has a battle they're facing at the moment. But I'd say in the past 4 years, when my mother, when going through tough times, there were moments that my mother and I would talk, either her tough times or my tough times. And one of us always seemed to bring up, something along the lines of, I wish I had the strength I had after Dad passed. And, I think at first, I think she said it the first time, but like it really stuck with me because I felt that too. In tough times, times that was the toughest time of my life, during that, going through that. But in tough times after that, something that may not seem as big a deal, but still is something that you're going through at that moment, you kind of realize that, that wasn't necessarily strength, right after he passed. That was a complete willingness to let God in, because we were in a complete vulnerable state. We were down to what we felt was we didn't know how life was going to continue on, but we were open, and we knew that God had to become stronger in our lives, and our relationships had to grow. Which leads me to a thought, and someone said something along the lines of it, but I've used this before, and I've always gone back and forth when doing coaches clinics and webinars on basketball. Do I bring up my faith, because it is such a big part of my life, and you go back and forth because hey, we need to spread the gospel, You never know who it can touch, but you also, you want to be respectful of others too, who don't want it, I guess in a way, shoved down their throats when they just come to watch how I design a post-up play or a baseline out of bounds play. But I have gotten to the point where I'm very comfortable always stating something on my faith during those moments. And the thing that I've used a lot is, I always say, don't let adversity be the only time you fall to your knees. And I've thought of, I kind of have developed more of a mindset with that where, we need to praise God during the good times too. That's what having a relationship is, celebrating the good, but relying on love, relying on trust and patience during the tough times. And I'll say, I talk about miracles and grace because I feel like I'm a product of a number of those. I've been afforded a number of great opportunities, and I'm very thankful for that. But God has offered me so much grace since my father passed. I married love of my life, who's probably listening in the other room, Haley. So I had a son. Actually, he turns a year old in a month here. Turns a year old. He bears my father's name, Philip, as his middle name, so Lucas Philip. And then, I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to become a head coach in the NBA at 32 years old. It's special to look at a point of where your life kind of was, and know that you were down to, you wouldn't say nothing, but emotionally you almost felt you were down to nothing. But the only thing that could pull you out of that space was God, and the only thing that could help you through that was faith, and other members of the faith community, because fellowship is huge. I actually had a chance to lead I'm in a group of other executives in the NBA, coaches, some agents around the NBA, from other teams. It's probably up to about 20, 25 men now, and we call ourselves brothers in Christ. And every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., we get on a conference call, and we have a rotating, somebody leads that call, but we have a rotating schedule where you share a message. And, I actually had the privilege of sharing a message this last week. And, that was the message that I wanted to speak on was, how important fellowship is. And just because we may not be able to experience fellowship physically right now, being around fellow Christians and having that in your life just strengthens you, and it takes you to a different place. So, that would be a source of encouragement that I would share. If you need, faithful people around you, they're out there. They're out there, and those relationships are deeper, and they mean something. But like I said, I've been afforded a lot of grace in my life. And it wasn't until I really let the grace in that I was able to experience all of it. I talk about being a coach, as my profession. In this profession, as a professional basketball coach, you're a leader of men. So the platform is great, but the responsibility is greater. And, my goal as a coach is, simply put, I want to coach the person before I coach the athlete. And I think that's important because, even though not everyone that I coach or might work with will believe in what I believe in, when it comes to Jesus Christ, the same principles I think that I try to live by as a Christian. And I say try because, once again, we all fall short. But I try to live by as a Christian. I build my foundation on when it comes to coaching. And, this is a big reason why, I'm sure that if any media members or people who watch my press conferences, they'd say that they've heard this over 100 times, but I talk a lot about process over outcome. And it's because I believe it. If our process to get better as a basketball team, and to get in a position where we have an opportunity to win is right, and we feel good about that, I can live with the outcome. Now it might not be I might not enjoy it, and it might take me a little bit of time to get to a place where I can live with that outcome. Hey, there's plenty of nights where I come home and my wife, see, I'm down in the office. I don't get a whole lot of sleep because, you're thinking about the game, but, eventually you get to a place where you can move forward because you have to move forward. We got to fail quickly. Games come quick for us in the NBA. We play at least 82 a year. And obviously we're hoping we can get to something close to that, but nobody knows. Only God. But that's something I talk about a lot. And I think the same thing goes for our faith, just trying to be better than we were the day before. And, there's plenty of days where I'd say I'd stay pretty, even, there's plenty of days I take steps back. But I'd like to think that there's more days I take steps forward than days that I take steps back. And I think that's important. And that goes back to my message of giving yourself grace. I know some people will tuned in to hear a little bit of basketball, and I'm sure I'll have some questions, but, for our team, we're going through a time when we're the youngest team in the NBA, which means there are plenty of growing pains, but there's also a lot of room to grow. And sharing a common bond of faith with our president, Gerson Rosas, has allowed me to coach with conviction and coach with a knowing that we're building and growing in a way where we can have high goals for our group on the court, but we can also have high goals for our group off the court, which I think is something that's pretty special. Because, like I said, it's the platform is great, but the responsibility is greater, and that's just being rooted in our faith. That was our common connection, myself and Gerson, who he and I actually are both members of that Brothers in Christ call, and we've done that for the last 4 years, and now we're working together as partners. So I mean, faith puts you with people. It puts you with people. God does that in a way that can do great things in your life. Last thing I kind of want to touch on before we open it up, to the group, and Pastor Westermeyer, once again, I appreciate you letting me share this message, because that's one of the things that I guess quarantine and doing this right now has allowed me to do a little bit more of. But I think anybody who Pastor Westermeyer, you went over what my background is in Minnesota. Grew up out in the Wayzata area, went to the University of Minnesota, ended up spending 5 years in Washington, D.C., but then ended up coming back to Minnesota, and now I'm able to live out a childhood dream of working to build a contender with the team my dad coached, but a team that I love in a state that I love, and with people that I love. So it's really special to me. But people ask me a lot, and they ask me to talk about legacy. And legacy is a word that's used a lot when people mention me and the Timberwolves. And but it's something that I kind of stay away from, because I've never really shared this portion of it right yet. But it's because people's vision of legacy in regards to me is different than what my vision of legacy is for myself. And I say that because my dad never told me that basketball had to be a part of my life. I chose to make that a part of my life. But my father, and mother did let it be known that being a good man and a Christian man was my path, and that was to be part of my life. So my legacy isn't necessarily to follow in my father's footsteps and be a great basketball coach, which is something that, I'm working every day to be. I feel very good about where I am, but obviously I want to grow. I want to be better. I think we always need to be trying to be better. But my legacy is to be my own man. And, he'd tell me that. And I think I said that in my opening press conference. He'd tell me to work to be a better man than I was the day before, especially while I have a platform where, people will want to listen to me. And, I think it's fortunate. I'm fortunate that, my job title gives me opportunities like this. During this quarantine, we've, as a team, because we have a number of believers in our organization or within our players, our roster. We have a chapel every night, every Saturday evening at 8 o'clock for our organization. Anybody can join, but there's no pressure to join. It's just there if you want to. It's led by our chaplain, Matt Moberg, and he opens every message with a saying that's really powerful. And I don't want to screw it up because I'm sure Matt's watching. And we hear it. He's our chaplain, so we hear it before every game too. But it says, "We gather to remind one another and remember for ourselves that who we are is more important than what we do, even if what we do gets more attention than who we are." And as I talk about my path, and I look forward to what I would hope people would tell my son Lucas, about his father and the legacy that he's a part of. I hope they'd say that he was someone that wasn't defined by what he did, but rather he was defined by how he lived and how he tried to live for Christ. So, I mean, that's my message of faith. It's one that, I humbly say I'm no one really special, just somebody who, has tried to do things, the right way, and do things in a way that, God would be proud of. But once again, I just offer up to everybody listening that, especially right now as a society, giving ourselves grace is important. And I learned to do that. And that's where my relationship with the Lord strengthened. So with that being said, I'll open it up to you, Pastor Weston Meyer.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you again, Coach Saunders. I'm going to let you rest your voice for just a second. This would be the point in the evening, and it's going to be the point in this evening, when I want to say a few words of thanks. These events they're a community service of St. Philip the Deacon, but they are funded entirely by generous gifts and contributions from individuals and corporations. And actually, we don't have a print program to hand to you tonight, but we do have one that you can look at online on the Faith and Life site. And I just want to say, especially as we're coming to the end of this season, a deep word of thanks to all of our sponsors, to everyone who makes these events possible. And I'm going to name a few of them, if you'll bear with me quickly. Thrivent Financial, Jim, thank you for your faithful partnership. Ulrich Real Estate Group, Bethenetti, thanks to you. Malley Design, Brian and Danae, I'm grateful to both of you. Honeybee Capital, Catherine. Motive Action, thank you for your support. Rapid Packaging, Phil and Mona. Productivity, Greg and Lisa. Cressa, Jim and Ruth Ann. I also want to thank Paul and Michelle Cook, Paul and Petra Kane, Tim and Janice Maudlin, Jay and Jennifer Novak, Ron and Janet Schutz, and we've got everyone else printed in a thing you can look at online. I also want to mention a special word of thanks to Coach Saunders. Again, I mentioned we bring speakers from around the country and indeed from around the world, and part of the expense we have is bringing them here and paying them an honorarium. He has very graciously tonight declined an honorarium. So in lieu of that, we're delighted as a series to be able to provide some face shields to frontline medical workers around the country. And we've made an investment in that, but Jeff and Patrice of Mastercraft Labels are also helping to make that possible. So Coach Saunders, again, thanks for your generosity in helping to make that possible. And again, I want to say a strong word of thanks to everyone else who makes these events possible. I also want to give a shout out. We've got Paul on the audio board and Darren and Kate in the sound room. One of the new normal things is that we rely so much on technology, and at about 6:35, we weren't sure this was going to work. So I hope it is working. And let's see, Jeff Elstad is our musician. Jeff is not with us tonight, but Jeff, thank you as always for your partnership. And I also want to mention a quarterly magazine that the church puts out. I'm mentioning this one specifically, and Ryan, I don't know if you've seen this, but this is the one that has the interview with you. So you can find this online if you want to read an interview with Coach Saunders at spdlc.org/inspire. Okay, and again, I hope I haven't forgotten anyone I was supposed to thank. We're so grateful to all of you. I was worried initially that I wasn't going to have enough questions for you, Coach Saunders, and now my hunch is we probably won't get to all of them. So
I didn't talk long enough.
No, you're fine. This will give us a chance to get to more of them.
All right.
And if you did submit a question, thank you. If we don't get to yours, I apologize in advance. I'm going to start though, Coach Saunders. You closed by talking a little bit about, opened and closed by talking about the importance of grace and giving ourselves grace. So one of the questions that's come in already tonight is, when it comes to opening up grace, what's your best suggestion, or what do you do in order to accomplish that for yourself?
Yeah. It's been an ongoing, it's been an ongoing process for me. And, I'm always open to better ways of doing things, but I think it's really been just talking to loved ones, and talking through things and not letting things, I guess, fester, deep inside you, but also the power of prayer. And, just taking that time, giving yourself grace can mean a number of things. For me, when I get back centered with the Lord, whether it be my devotion in the morning, whether it be, watching a sermon, whether it be, listening to a message, getting in the Bible, whatever it is, that helps me give myself grace, because at the end of the day, I fully acknowledge that my job is, in the end, is results based, and I understand that. My ultimate victory and all of our ultimate victories as Christians, is there for us in the end, after this life. So I think once I've been able to kind of think a little more along those lines, I've been able to give myself a little bit more grace, but it's still tough. I still have a lot of tough days, as there's ups and downs, in sports.
Good. All right. Thank you. This was, and I'm not going to, I don't think I'm going to actually say who these are from, and this one I'm particularly not going to, but I really, I want to say a thank you to this questioner. This is from a 14-year-old, and this whole series, of course, is called Faith and Life. It's about how faith is part of every dimension of life. So I'm going to read part of what he wrote. He says, I'm a 14-year-old eighth grader, and I find it hard to be open about my faith. When I do, I seem to get made fun of for believing in fairy tales, or told that I should believe in science instead of a phony God. It is so frustrating. I don't have hatred for the people that say these things, but I don't understand why they have such a problem with what I believe. I just pray that God can show them love instead of hate. Coach Saunders, have you ever been made fun of because of your faith? What is faith like in the NBA? And he concludes by saying, I got to the point where I wouldn't say a word around people who are bad-mouthing Christian beliefs, as they would all turn on me. Yeah. Thanks. So what would you say to him, to this young 14-year-old?
I'd tell him, I'd give him a lot of credit. Not only for taking time to watch, something like this, that revolves around faith, but also, being open with your faith. Because, hey, I'll tell you, whoever wrote that in, I wasn't rooted in my faith, or probably strong enough in my faith at 14 years old to be able to speak openly or outwardly about it. So I give you a ton of credit, but I'd tell you that, just continue on with the thought process of that the Bible is true. The Bible's true. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And, people, I hope those aren't necessarily your friends that maybe make fun of you for that. But if they are, pray for your friends, pray for them that they'll be able to have the opportunity to be as open with their faith and be as strong in their faith as you are. So I give you a lot of credit. Whoever wrote that in, that's really cool.
And again, I want to give credit to this young man as well. And everyone's tuning in, Coach Saunders, to see you, not me. But he does mention
Man, you're going to make me emotional tonight now. Gosh, that's awesome. That's one of the coolest things I've heard.
Well, he mentions in that question, he's told he should believe in science instead of faith. And that's a little bit of a hobby horse for me. And I've actually taught a couple multi-week classes about the supposed conflict between science and faith. That's a long story, but I would say there is not a conflict, and
No.
it makes me convicted that we need to do more teaching about that, because it's just a misunderstanding. All right, let's see. We'll continue with this sort of faith, and we will have some basketball questions. And by the way, thanks to everyone who knows way more about basketball than I do for sending in questions. So we will have some more technical basketball questions. This is sort of a hybrid. Do you have any role models of faith in the NBA who either have in the past encouraged you or encourage you at present? So any role models of faith in the NBA?
That's a good question. I guess role model wise, all of the individuals that I get together with, I guess, virtually every Tuesday morning, and we, since we're all in different cities, we've done it virtually for the last 5 years. So this is nothing new for us, but a lot of those guys are older than me. So they've been great role models and they've been great for me as I've, navigated being a new father too, and trying to lead a household in a Christian way. Once again, it's not always perfect, but those are our intentions. Those are my intentions. And then the NBA, there's a lot of athletes that are strong in their faith that a lot of people wouldn't know about. And, I mentioned a little bit about our chapel before every game. And, no matter what city you're in, there will be a chapel 1 hour prior to tip off. And that's for, players, coaches, executives from both teams. Mm. So it's not just our team that's in there. We're in there with other opponents. And you think about it, a lot of times these are guys who make a lot of money to, outperform the guy that they're holding their hand praying with, and an hour from now, which is pretty powerful to think about that. And there's been a number of guys that I did not know were Christians that show up to that chapel. A lot of superstars that you see on TV, you see in commercials, you might not know, that because they haven't been as open with their faith. But, being able to, know that you have a common bond with those guys, even when competing against them. And I say that for myself too, as a coach, competing against them. It's pretty special. And, it always makes it where, if you ever see them, there's been times where I've seen some of those guys, out to eat when we've been about to play an opponent the night before. If I go to a restaurant and they might be at the same restaurant, they'll always wave hello. I always wave hello to them, because I know that, even though we've only said 5 words to each other, that we both share a common love, and that's a love for the Lord. Nice.
There's sort of a couple questions here that are, one's a follow-up to the other, but I'll start with first. Basketball's on hold, but fans are getting their fix watching The Last Dance, featuring Michael Jordan in his last season with the Bulls. It's the most viewed ESPN documentary. So the question is, are you watching, and are there any lessons or reflections from this documentary? That's the first one, and I'll let you answer, and I'll follow it up.
All right. I'm absolutely watching, because it was Michael Jordan was my era. I mean, that was my first ever professional basketball game, was going to the old Chicago Stadium with my family and seeing a game. I remember back, my mom, I wanted a pair of Chicago Bulls shorts so badly when I was growing up. And my dad was a CBA, a minor league coach at the time. I believe he was in lacrosse, and I know I wanted these Chicago Bulls shorts so badly. We had 4 kids, young family, and I didn't get them for a little while there. And then one day, I came home, and my mom, and I guess it shows you my mom's heart too. My mom cut off a pair of red sweatpants, and she used a Sharpie and paint to make me a pair of Bulls shorts. And now looking back on it, I wish I still had those, but that was just something special. And that's kind of what The Last Dance has brought me back to, was a nostalgia and a childhood, a childhood, memory and of watching the Bulls teams. And I think there's a lot of things, I go back and forth between watching The Last Dance as a fan and watching it as a coach that can take a number of lessons from, that whole documentary, lessons in dysfunction, lessons in resilience, lessons in, dealing with players, knowing that everybody's a little bit different. There's been a lot of thoughts I've had, but, I've drawn a lot from it. And actually our organization, we, every Friday at 3:00, we get on a Zoom call for an hour and we discuss The Last Dance. Just to, and once again, it's open, but just seeing what, things worked for those guys at that time, and then what things maybe didn't, and what we could draw from that. So I'm a fan, but I'm also trying to learn too.
Good. All right. I think you answered the follow-up to that, so I'll move on that. Here's a question about the current season. With the season on hold, do you think it's possible for the NBA season to resume? And if so, what do you think the format might look like?
Hey, I think everybody else's guess would be as good as mine. Right now we're, obviously, what we're going through right now with this pandemic is the first thought is safety, and safety not just for those who work in the NBA, but the world, and navigating through this in a way where people can come out the other side and hopefully not have too much collateral damage, whatever that looks like. Unfortunately, it's touched us as an organization where Karl Towns lost his mother, and that's rocked us in a way, because we love Karl, and in this moment we're not able to put our arms around Karl because we are keeping our distance. So safety's number one priority. Whenever it's safe, I'm sure they're exhausting all possible ways of doing this. But I feel very fortunate to be in a league where we have a commissioner like Commissioner Silver who doesn't just think of what this means for sport, but he thinks of what it means for society. And that can go as far as not wanting to take tests away from utilized society, communities that might not be able to, underprivileged communities that might not be able to get those tests. He's doing everything the right way and keeping our safety as a top priority.
So let's take a couple more have just come in about the current pandemic situation. How have you been able to keep a sense of unity in your team during this time, and has faith played a role in that?
Yeah. I mean, we have a sense of unity in a way that, we work in small groups a lot of times, especially as we have some players in other markets, maybe on the West Coast or on the East Coast. So timing wise, we do a number of Zoom calls. We've done a number of projects. I try to FaceTime the players, once kind of every 10 days, but then a number more texts, a number more phone calls with that. But, you want to make sure that they're able to focus on their families too right now, because that's, the most important thing. But you also, want to make sure that they come back with a mindset of, through this whole pandemic, not working to get ready when the time comes, but staying ready. And that means a number of different things. But faith plays a role for a number of guys, and that's a common connection for a number of players and myself on this team. So, I always enjoy those FaceTimes and those conversations where we could dive a little deeper into that, and seeing those guys, and a lot of times their significant others, on that chapel call at 8 p.m. on Saturdays. That's my wife and my one of our best times of the week over these last probably 9 weeks is hopping on that chapel call and having fellowship with other believers.
This person says, I'm scared about people who don't seem to take the pandemic seriously. What's your biggest fear? And then says, keep the faith, coach. All the best.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all have a sense of fear in that way. And it goes, kind of ties into what I talked about is, we want to have faith over fear, but sometimes it's that's difficult. And I think right now is one of those times. Having faith over fear, all the time, it sounds great and it sounds perfect. But unfortunately, we live in an imperfect world. So, for myself, I mean, I think it's trusting that that we're going to do as a family, and we're going to do everything we can to help be a part of the solution, and that can be as simple as wearing a face mask when out in public, or all the way into kind of just quarantining in your house, but following guidelines, following rules, but also having an understanding that everybody's going through something different right now.
All right. So moving, and again, I want to thank everyone who keeps sending questions in. Moving from the heavy topic of COVID to a lighter one, and we chatted a little before the call, and you said you hope we could have a little fun too. So this person wrote in and said, "What's the funniest thing that ever happened to you in the NBA? Do players play jokes on you, and do you play jokes on them?"
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah,
maybe you can't share those. I don't know.
I can share it. I can share it. We work in professional sports, and I said that ultimately at the end of the day, everybody looks at the record, but a lot of times people don't look at what's being built too. And I will say that I've had an opportunity to go back and watch our games, from earlier this season. Look at things that worked, things that didn't work. I feel really good about where this team is going. Because we established how we want to play. But I feel even better how this team is going after being able to look back and think about some of the memories that have already been made this year. And that's, top to bottom within our organization. We have so many great people, and, you do want to have fun with, as you're working in a high pressure job, you want to have fun with it too. So there's been plenty of times that jokes have been played, or, but it's got to be in the right time. I'll use one. We have a guy on our staff, and he's our kind of quality control, I guess kind of chief of staff in a way, where he just kind of keeps things kind of moving, keeps things flowing throughout the day and through practice, making sure we're organized and people are in the right place. And earlier this year, Carl threw a Halloween party downtown, and I guess the players got to him, and that's the only reason he knows that he wouldn't have been able to do this if the players didn't tell me that they put him up to this. But the players got to him, and he came to the Halloween party dressed as me with a whistle, wearing what I wear all the time. And I have all these little cards that I like to, and they're different colors. They're color coordinated. So if you see me pulling cards out of my suit pocket during the game, I have one for, after timeout plays, one for the fourth quarter, one for plays that I want to run to start quarters, a bunch of different things, and substitutions, a bunch of different things. And they gave him a stack of about 50 cards. And he was running around the Halloween party, blowing the whistle and yelling, because I want our team to play fast. And so I'm always yelling, pace, pace, pace. So he was yelling pace this whole time. So players put him up to that. I thought that was a pretty good one.
Okay.
I got him back the next day.
How did you get him back?
In practice.
Oh, I see.
we had a lot of pace to practice.
Oh, I see. Okay. I don't know. This is really interesting. Before the season was suspended this year, which team was the most difficult to prepare your team to play against, and why? And what about which individual player?
Yeah. They're all difficult, really. And that's not, I'm not just saying that, they're all difficult, and all players are difficult to prepare for. I wouldn't put one above the other. I mean, you have, I'm sure everybody can guess, the list if you follow a little bit of sports, but, it's, you have to trust your process in preparation, trust that you're going to be able to try to put guys in the best position to succeed. But also know that sometimes, these players are really, really good. And, hey, there's no bad players in the NBA, just some teams that maybe aren't as good as others. Mm. So, anybody can have a night. So every night's a tough night.
All right. Fair enough. This one says, when you played basketball, this is going back a few years, when you were in high school, when you played basketball in high school, you played for a program called Minnesota Magic. I assume that's correct. That program was run by a gentleman named Matt Ricker, who coached you, who's now retired. What would you say to Matt now if you could, and how did that program help you to get where you are now?
I'd say, the Minnesota Magic are, they're a group that was, I was able to form a lot of friendships, a lot of bonds with. So obviously I'm very thankful for anybody that was a part of that and helping that group be a part of, something where we were able to make a lot of lasting memories. Some of those guys are, still friends of mine to this day. So, those are special times for me.
We've talked about this, and you referenced it actually in your comments, Coach Saunders. But when you were appointed the head coach, and you got a lot of questions, obviously, about your dad, I thought the way you're approaching that is really healthy in terms of being your own person. This person does bring up your dad, though, and he says, he or she actually, I guess, I graduated from the U in 1974, and I watched your dad play for the U of M. I will never forget the enthusiasm in that arena as the team did a choreographed warm-up that was a hallmark of their team. And the question is, can you tell me what one of the most important faith lessons your father taught you was?
Yeah, I think my father he really just showed me that faith can look like it can look like a number of different things to whoever's to a number of different people, and he did that by just explaining to me that the way you live and the way you treat people, sometimes I'm just speaking from my experience, but the way you live as a Christian and the way you treat people as a Christian can be more important than if every book of the Bible, and that it's more of living out the Christian life as opposed to just being somebody who has done a great job of memorizing how you should live out your life. Okay.
I love this one. Where did you get your training to become an NBA coach, and what type of credentials do you need to become a head coach?
Oh, hey, you get your training through experience, experience and credentials to become a head coach. I mean, I think it's, I've had a lot of great opportunities, and, it's been, I spent over 10 years as an assistant in the NBA, learned a lot. I give a lot of people credit that I worked for, and then, any success I've ever had is, really for the most part, because of other people. So, I say just being around people that also, help you bloom and help you grow is very important.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, and you'll be able to deflect this however you want. But the question is simply, who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
They're both tough. They're they both played in different eras, and I think it's a different game at times. I never had an opportunity to prepare for Michael Jordan as a coach, but preparing for LeBron James is tough. It is, because he can do so many different things. But I was able to watch Michael Jordan and in a way idolize what he did growing up, and I know he was very difficult to prepare for as well as a coach. So you don't want to see either one of those guys on the other side. If they're on your team, you feel better. But it's tough. It's tough against guys like that.
Nice. Here's one about the city of Minneapolis. You talked. You're a homegrown person. You love the city. This person says Minneapolis is a great place to live, but not a cool place to play. Maybe you would argue with that, like LA or Boston. How do you get a player to come here?
You got to try to do things to set yourself apart. And I think that our organization, I talked about, my relationship with Gerson, our president, and then, we have a CEO in Ethan Casson. We have an owner in Mr. Taylor, Glenn Taylor, that, we share we have a family atmosphere. So I think having something like that can appeal to an individual, especially an individual raising a young family, maybe more than a city could. And, hey, I'm really hoping we get a chance to play a little bit in the summertime, or we have that opportunity, because, for people to see Minneapolis in the summertime too, it's really a special place. And hey, I say that the winters aren't that bad either, but I grew up here. You can stay inside in the Skyways. This is my pitch. So that's what I usually say. You stay inside in the Skyways downtown, as long as you want. But Minneapolis is a special place. People just need to give it a chance.
Well, in your last response, you talked about the leadership team there, yourself, Gerson, Ethan, Mr. Taylor. The question involves all of them. It says a little over a year ago, there was a complete turnover of leadership in the organization. All of you have since been very focused on building a culture that you'd like to sustain for years to come. As a leader in establishing that culture, how do you balance making faith part of that cultural message when you probably have many different individuals on your team that come from a variety of different faith backgrounds?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I talked, I guess, a little bit about it. Our chapel service allows us to get together with other Christians. I've had other players, play, for me or for our team that, are Muslim, or, maybe aren't necessarily a believer, but you always want to give, whatever they believe in, their faith calls them to be. I always made sure to give this individual time to pray, and make sure he was taken care of in that sense, within the Muslim faith. So, you want to make it a part of your organization. You want to do it respectfully too, but I think a lot of it is based off of principles too, and how you lead your life. And, we did have a complete shift in leadership, and we've had some really good people come through and be leaders in our organization too. But as Gerson, myself, and then Ethan have talked more, we're kind of, that's something that can bond us together too. So I think you find, like anything in life, you find common bonds and you run with them because you believe in those.
Okay. So again, I'm grateful for all these questions coming in. I don't know enough about basketball. I apologize to know if this is a loaded question or not, so I'm simply going to pass it on. What kind of relationship?
I'll deflect it if I don't like it.
Okay, fair enough. That's totally fine. The question is, what kind of relationship do you have with Devin Booker?
He plays for another team. Next question.
Okay.
There's a lot of rules in the NBA. You're not allowed to comment on other players. So
okay, fair enough. This one's about becoming a father. Congratulations on becoming a father this past year. How has being a father changed your perspective, how you lead a group of young men in basketball, and also how has it impacted how you think about and lead in faith?
Yeah, no, that's a good topic to broach. I mean, it's, having a son has been, the greatest thrill of my life. It really has. And being able to be with him and Haley over these last, 9 weeks, I believe, I think that's kind of where we are, give or take. Days kind of blend together, but being able to be with him and Haley these last, 9 weeks has been something that, I've enjoyed. Obviously, I miss the competing. I miss, being with the team, being with the players, but seeing him grow and seeing him, be able to do different things and actually like being able to see something, a change in him every day is something that's really special. And, looking at him, you want to be a better man and you want to succeed more because you want to do right by him. But you also want to make sure that he grows up in a household where faith is a priority. And, he will. So it's been cool it's unbelievable to be a father.
Yeah. And congratulations again on that. This one's about sort of figuring out how to strike the right balance between the hours at home and at work. And in your role particularly, I'm sure you could work 24 hours a day. So the question is, can you say a word about that? And then is there someone who sort of is a role model for you who you think does it well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a work in progress when it comes to that. I mean, that is one thing about this job is there's always something to be done. There's always something you can do more of. There's always something you can prepare for. So I think at times, and I'm still learning to be better with it. At times, shutting off a little bit is good. And, that's one of the things that this quarantine has given me an opportunity to do. And, I think that when people talk about, being a professional basketball coach, you might just think it's just basketball. You show up for the games and you roll the balls out there and you coach. But there's a lot of things that go into that. So striking the balance is important. And I learned how many things really go, how many decisions are made. I tell this story, but last year, after I took over, I had to make a decision. We're getting ready for a game and somebody needed me to check off something whether we wanted asparagus or broccoli on the plane. And so decisions can go all the way. I figured out a way to pass that to somebody else now, but I didn't know that at first, and
what did you pick, by the way?
I picked a little bit of both. I think that, my wife does a good job of helping me be present. We have our things that we like to do. We like our walks. We like our shows, whatever it is, we have our things.
Okay. This takes you back to the time you spent as an assistant with the Wizards. Who were some of the All-Star players you coached with the Wizards, and what impact do you think you had on those players?
I mean, when I say this is that, any impact that was had on the player was because of the player. I mean, it's, I was just there to help in any way possible. But, I had the privilege of working with John Wall, working with Bradley Beal. Those guys were, and still are, special players and special individuals. I've been able to have talks of faith with them in the past too. So it's good to see, guys like that in chapel before games now, even as I'm, 10 years later, I'm a head coach and, I get to see them. And so I'm happy that they're still able to be in Washington, because that's a great organization. But also, guys who are young fathers as well. So it's cool to share that.
A couple of fun ones, and we're wrapping it up here pretty quickly, but this one is, who wins a game of Around the World or Horse, you or KG?
KG. I mean,
I think I could have answered that one.
I mean, I'm a confident guy, but I'm a self-aware individual as well.
If you weren't involved in basketball coaching or sports in general, do you have a sense of what other career path you think you might have chosen, or what you'd be doing?
You know what? My mom actually said that, I would maybe I might have your job, Pastor Westmeyer.
Oh, all right.
She always thought that I would have been gone the pastoral route. Huh. So
interesting.
But I mean, it's something that I could try to help others or have an impact. I'm a people person. I like being around people, being around youth, and trying to help. Well,
and I have no doubt you are, in fact, making an impact in pastoral ways in your role. I mean, no question about that. Related to that, outside of basketball, what kinds of things are you passionate about? You've talked about some of those walks with your wife and being a dad, but are there other things you're passionate about?
I mean, really, it's just right now, it's anything that involves family. That's basketball, my faith, and family. I mean, that's pretty much all I live by. And then, when my wife goes to bed and Lucas goes to bed, late at night, I'll turn on something on Netflix, or I'll watch my game film. But usually, during quarantine, turn on something on Netflix. So that's kind of what I do right now outside of it. But a lot of what I do is just trying to, get better. I'm very focused on just trying to get better.
All right, a couple final questions here. This one just came in. What kind of work for charity do you do? Do you want to say a word about? I know you do a number of things in town. You want to say some of that? What some of those are?
Yeah, I mean, Haley and I have been involved in a number of different initiatives. But I guess one, as long as I have time, I focus on is, Carl Anthony Towns is a special person. He's a man of faith as well. He's somebody who has endured a lot during this COVID crisis, but he's also given a lot, and being able to him being able to join with Mayo and start a fund in his mother's name there to help with the research when it comes to COVID is something that I definitely would like to share with anybody out there, because anything does matter, and she was a very special individual who made everybody feel so important every time she saw you. So she just spread joy, and they've been a faithful family. But so if anybody's that all that money goes to good use. But Haley and I are involved in a number of different initiatives. Where we've done some things with Big Brothers Big Sisters. We've done a number of different things with whether it be working with hospitals during this crisis, but I also have always wanted to make sure that kids are able to attend games when they maybe aren't fortunate enough to be afforded those tickets. So we figured out a way with the Timberwolves Fast Break Foundation to donate tickets to every game this year. So a number of different initiatives.
All right, final question. I'm going to give credit to one of my pastoral colleagues here, Pastor Mark Schmid, who in turn was borrowing it from James Lipton, and now I'm spacing on his the thing he did. But the question is, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? Which, by the way, I hope isn't anytime soon.
Oh man, well done. That's a great question. That's a great way to end it.
Yeah. Well, and again, I want to thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. I'm grateful to have you here. I will say that, obviously during this time of pandemic, we're not entirely sure what's going to happen in the next few months. We do have next year's season scheduled. It's interesting that we would talk a little bit about the Chicago Bulls, because our first speaker in the fall, and mark your calendars, is Thursday, October 1st, will feature another famous Chicago athlete, Mike Singletary, who is a linebacker for the Chicago Bears. So we'll see if he can actually be in person here at St. Philip Deacon, or if we have to do it virtually again. But again, October 1st in the fall. So thanks everyone for joining us. And Coach Saunders, I would give this to you in person, but I'm not next to you, so I'm going to have to send this to you.
Sounds good.
We give each of our speakers a granite plaque that says, with thanks, in this case, with thanks to Ryan Saunders for bringing faith to life. And we want to thank you so much for taking a few minutes. I know you're incredibly busy.
Absolutely.
So thanks for your words. Thanks for your time. And thanks everyone for joining us. And we will see you again in the fall.